Okay, hello everyone, grade 9s. In my last video, I introduced you to the debtor's journal, and today I will be talking to you about the debtor's ledger. Now, in my previous video, I spoke about this debtor's ledger, and if you remember what I said about it, and we can highlight here, is that it was like a little book that we had for each debtor in order to keep track of their individual debts. Now, in the previous video, I said to you, don't worry about this yet, but now is the time to worry, not so much worry though, but to learn about this. Okay, so posting to the debtor's ledger. Our business has to post all transactions from the debtor's journal into the debtor's ledger on a daily basis. This is so important, okay? You cannot leave the debtor's ledger for last. So I'm just going to make a note of that. Okay, so we cannot leave it for the end. Normally, you guys are used to the general ledger, where we only do the general ledger right at the end. But when we're doing a debtor's ledger, it's very important that every single time a debtor purchases from us, we record it into the debtor's journal, and then we immediately go to their ledger. So please do not leave the debtor's ledger as your last step. Then I said, why? Why do we have this debtor's ledger? Well, it's because it allows us to keep record of the individual's outstanding debt, okay? So that we can see how much, so we can just add there, how much they owe us. So how much they owe us at any given time. It's important to know this because they've taken the stock, they've bought it on credit, which means they haven't paid us. So it's very important that we know how much they owe us so that we can get the full amount back from them. Okay, so now we're going to talk briefly about the format. And I say here that each debtor has their own ledger. And you already know this from when we were doing the debtor's journal. Because remember, in that folio column of the debtor's journal, we would always write the debtor's ledger number. For example, N Grobler DL4. Okay, then what's also important, and which I will show you in the example, is that sometimes a debtor still owes us money from the previous month. Okay, what you'll learn in the older grades is that we give our debtors up to 3 months to pay us back. So one debtor, it might be April now, but someone might still be owing you money from February, okay? That's why it's important to have this ledger, because we can see exactly how much they owe us, okay? If a debtor does owe you money from the previous month, we have to write this balance at the beginning of the month so that we can remember that they still owe us that money, okay? And we specifically call this an account rendered, okay? Some people do just call it a balance. However, I prefer the term account rendered. And why do I prefer it? Because it's actually talking about how many times that they bought on account last month, okay? Remember, purchasing on account means buying on credit. So we are able to see how much their account accumulates to. How much do they actually owe us? Okay. Then I give you an actual format of the debtor's ledger, and we're going to go through it. So remember, every single debtor will get their own little book or little ledger. So we would put our business name here, and then we'd put the debtor's name in this section. For example, N Grobler. So this is N Grobler's little ledger, and I said that N Grobler is DL4. Okay. Then, every single time the debtor purchases from us, we have to record it in this ledger. So we have a date column where we'll obviously write the date. We have a details column. Now this details column is very important, and there's two things that we often put in there. The first thing, so there, 2.1, that we put in is the opening balance. Now, if you remember, okay, the opening balance is what they owe us. I wrote it there for you, from last month. Okay, so it is last month's amount. So if they still owe you, because remember, you can't forget that they still owe you. And then the next thing that we do is every single time they purchase on credit, we don't just write DJ, okay? We have to write the source document. Now, you're going to take your brains far back to the last video, and hopefully you've completed the activities, and you have to think, okay, do I remember what that source document is? Now, remember, we're dealing with credit sales, okay? And whenever there's something being purchased or sold on credit, we use an invoice. Then we have to decide, okay, is it a duplicate or is it an original? Now, who always gets the original invoice? It's the customer, okay? And in this case, are we the customer? No. So the customer, the debtor, would get the original, and then we would obviously get the duplicate. We would keep the duplicate invoice, okay? So this is very important to remember. Then we have, this might be a little bit too much now, but once you start doing the activities, it will make a lot of sense. Then we have the folio column. In this column, we actually put the journal that the transaction happened in. And so far, all you guys have learned is the DJ. Okay? So we would put there, duplicate invoice, DJ. Then we've got these two columns, a debit column and a credit column. And you know everything about a debit and credit. You've seen it in a general ledger. But what is very important here, and I've made notes on it, but I want to explain looking here. And I always say to myself, okay, what type of an account is a debtor? And if you remember from the previous video, I said that a debtor is an asset, okay? They are an asset because they owe us money. And anything to do with money in the business is an asset because it is an item of value. We see debtors as walking around 100 Rand bills, okay? So they are very important to us. So whenever I do a debtor's ledger, I always take a pen and I write, because it's an asset, I write a fat A in between those two columns, okay? To remind myself that it is an asset. Then I say, okay, how do we treat an asset in the general ledger? Well, we use an asset, it works, plus on the debit side and minus on the credit side, okay? So I always put a plus column on the plus sign rather in the debit column and a minus side on the credit column, okay? And why is that important? Because if the debtor buys more, okay, we always ask ourselves, what is happening to his debt? So if he's going more into debt, then his debt is getting bigger, okay? So every single time that his debt increases, we have to do it and enter the amount on the debit side, okay? So when does his debt increase? Whenever there is a DJ entry, because this is when he buys on credit, which means that his debt is increasing, okay? This we're going to really focus on in this lesson, but we've got this credit column as well. We've got a minus sign here. So we haven't dealt with this in theory yet, but we need to think, okay? When will a debtor's debt decrease? What does he have to do to owe you less money? Okay? He has to pay back Okay, and whenever we pay back, we're super happy. And what happens to his debt is that his debt is going to decrease. Now, we're not really focusing on the credit column as yet. However, in the next lesson, we will go into more depth about that and about the specific journal that we enter into. Maybe a few of you have some ideas about that already. And then we have this special balance column. And this balance column gives us an up-to-date record of what the debtor owes us on the specific day. And later on in the example, I'll show you how this balance column works. So it's an up-to-date record. Okay, so there's some more information on that. And we are going to try do an example now. So it says, information. Robbie's Garments sells clothing on credit to its customers. Complete the debtor's journal for April 2020. Complete the debtor's ledgers for April 2020. And they've told us some very important information here, which is that markup is calculated at 50% on cost. Okay, which we'll be using later. Then they give us balances on the 1st of April. So here we can see our various debtors. We've got SLO, JPS, and C Pina. Now, why would we have balances? Well, if you remember from what we spoke about earlier in this video, is that this is what they owe us from last month. Okay, and remember I said we can't forget, we don't just write off this debt at the end of every month. We have to remember that Eslo owes us 850 Rand. So we need to record that so that we can add all her debt from this month onto that. Okay, so that's also very important information. Then we have a variety of transactions and some steps to complete a DJ and the debtor's ledger. Okay. Then we've been given the debtor's journal for Robbie's Garments, and we've been given the debtor's ledger. Now, the first thing I always do is I come to my debtor's journal. If you remember from my previous video, I said, wherever it says sales, I write at SP, at selling price, and cost of sales is always at cost price, because this is how much we bought it for, and this is how much we sold it for to the debtor. Then we come to the debtor's ledgers, and we have SLO, who's DL1. Now, just like I said earlier on, whenever I see a debtor's ledger, I always write a fat A in the column, A standing for assets, and I put a plus on the debit side and a minus on the credit side. Same for JPS, a fat A, plus on the debit side, minus on the credit side. And lastly, for CPNA, also a fat A, plus on the debit side, minus on the credit side. Just to refresh your memories, we'll always enter on the debit side whenever his account increases. And a nice little trick for you is that his account increases when it goes in the DJ, okay? And the DJ always has to go on the debit side. That's always how I remember it. Where does DJ go? Always on the debit side. So I actually sometimes even write that for myself. DJ will always go in the debit column. So we can add that in for you there as well. Okay, and then we are going to start. So this little setup here is what I call setting myself up to pass. It takes a quick minutes just to make sure that you have all your little bits of information that will help you. Okay, so we're going to go through these steps. And the first step says that we need to post the opening balances, okay? And I just want to add there, we post them in the ledgers, okay? Because we have to account for the fact that they still owe us from last month, okay? So we go and we say, okay, on the 1st of April, S-Lo owes us 850 Rand. Now, please pay attention here. We have to write the date. It is the 1st of April. And remember, it's an opening balance. So we always have to write account rendered because it's how many times they bought on account in the last month. Some people can or choose to teach it with the word balance. However, like I said earlier on, I do prefer account rendered. Now, because it is a balance, we do not enter it into a debit or credit column because S-Lo isn't buying on credit. It's only her opening balance. So we just immediately go put the amount into the balance column. And like I said, she owes 850 Rand. So that's how much she owes us on the 1st of April. Okay, then we go to J. Pierce and we do the same. It's the 1st of April. And we say there, account rendered because it's the amount from last month. And remember, it's a balance. So we don't enter into the debit or credit columns. And we can see that J. Pierce owes us 1,000 Rand. Okay, that's her opening balance. And lastly, we need to do for C. Pina. Same process. April the 1st. Account rendered. And we go straight into the balance column because it's an opening balance. And we can see C. Pina owes us 280 Rand. Okay, so we've just completed the first step, which was post the opening balances. So I can tick that off and I'll cross out these as well because then I know I've used them. Then the next step is to post one transaction at a time, which we used to. And then I make a note here and I say, once you post into the journal, you need to immediately post the sales amounts into the debtor's ledger. Because remember, the debtor's ledger needs to be done on a daily basis. We've spoken about that. So you cannot leave it for last. So as soon as you enter into the journal, you have to enter into the debtor's ledger. So let's start. So steps 2 and 3 are kind of combined. So number 1, we sold goods on credit to S-Lo and we sold it to her for 600 Rand and the cost price is 400 Rand. Issued invoice 012 or number 12. Okay. What journal would this go into? Well, you can easily see that we sold on credit. Whenever we sell on credit, it has to go into the debtor's journal. We can also see from here that the selling price of the goods is 600 Rand. That is how much she bought the stock for. So you remember this from the last activity. We go into the DJ. We say the document number is number 12. The day is the 1st. Details, remember, is the debtor's name. Who did we, who purchased from us? It was S-Lo. And then it's asking for her folio, her ledger number. So let's just go have a quick little check. Here, the debtor's ledger, and S-Lo happens to be DL1. So in the folio column, we write DL1. And that also reminds us that we have to immediately go to her ledger when we are done. Then the sales amount is 600 and the cost of sales amount is 400 Rand. Okay, now we need to go to the ledger, but we have to think, what amount does she actually owe us? Would we be happy if she just paid us back 400 Rand? No. Remember, the 400 Rand is what we purchased the stock for. She owes us the 600 Rand. So that is what we have to put into her ledger, which we're going to do right now. Because remember, I said you have to do it immediately. So we come to S-Lo's ledger and we write the date. It's the 1st of April, so you don't have to rewrite it. And remember, in the details column, we always write the source document. That's what I said earlier on in this video, okay? Now remember, the source document for the DJ is always the duplicate invoice. So we'll write that there. Duplicate invoice. And please, you have to write the number of the invoice. So if you look over there, the document number was number 12. So we write duplicate invoice number 12. You can't forget the number. Then remember, the folio column always has the journal in. So let's just double check where we came from. We came from the debtor's journal. So we'll write there, DJ. Now remember, I said DJ always goes on the debit side. Why? Because the debtor is buying more. So what is happening to her debt? It is increasing because now she owes us even more money, okay? And we said that she bought for 600 Rand. So we enter the 600 Rand in the debit column. Now, what becomes super important is we want to then work out how much does she owe us now. So what we do is we take the 850 Rand because that's what she owes us from last month. Okay. Then we add the 600 because look, it's in the plus column. She owes us more money. And then we calculate a new balance. So with a calculator we see, okay, her balance from last month was 850 Rand. And now she just bought more. So she owes us an extra 600 Rand. Equals, she now owes us 1,450 Rand. And that is how you update the balance column. Nice and easy. So we can, if she were to come back on, let's say the 2nd of April, and she said, how much do I owe you? We could quickly go check her ledger and say, you owe us 1,450 Rand. That is why you have to update it on a daily basis and not leave it for the last step. Okay, so you just completed your first ledger entry. So we can tick that off. Done. Number 2, merchandise sold on account. Now remember, whenever we sell on account, it means that we're selling on credit. And we sold to C. Pina for 1,200 Rand. So if we sold it to him for 1,200 Rand, I hope you all agree that this is the selling price because that's what we sold it to him for. And if we're selling on account, we all know that that has to go into the debtor's journal. So what do we need to do? Post it into the DJ and then immediately go update his ledger. So if you remember from last time, the document numbers have to follow in numerical order. So it's the 13th. The day is the 2nd. And we need to see who's purchasing from us. And it is C. Pina. Okay. Then we've got this folio column. Remember, that's the ledger number. So let's just go check. C. Pina is DL3. Okay. And he purchased the goods for 1,200 Rand. That's the selling price. So we then put 1,200 Rand under sales because that's the SP. And they haven't given you the cost of sales. But what they did give you is that we use a 50% markup. So let's work out the cost of sales. We need the selling price is 1,200 times by 100 over 100 plus the 50% markup, and we get an amount of 800 Rand. Okay, now normally you're used to being done, but we're not done because we now immediately need to go update C. Pina's ledger because now he owes us even more money. He owes us an extra 1,200 Rand. So we come to C. Pina's ledger. Okay, we write in the date, which is the 2nd. The details, remember, is always the source document. And the source document for the DJ is the duplicate invoice. And then what did I say you mustn't forget? The number of the source document. It was number 13. We've just come from the DJ. And remember, the DJ always goes on the debit side. Okay? Why? Because he is buying more. His account is increasing with 1,200 Rand. Okay? That means he owes us even more money. So remember the process. This is what he owes us from last month. And now he just bought more. So what sign are we going to use? That plus sign. That's why I put it in there. Okay? So now we need to see, okay, how much does CP now owe us on the end or at the end of the 2nd of April? So we take 280 plus this new 1,200. So he now owes us 1,480. Okay, so if CP now were to come and ask us how much he owes, we could easily tell him that he owes that amount. And that is the second done. Next, on the 16th, we sold trading stock. And look at this trick. We sold trading stock with a cost price of 650. Okay, so this is the CP. So hopefully some of you are thinking now, oof, I need to be able to work out the SP. And we sold to S low on credit. So what journal does this go into? DJ, because of that keyword, sold on credit. Okay, so we come to the DJ and we say document number 14. The day is the 16th. Who did we sell to? We sold to S Low. And we can see S Low's ledger is DL1. Okay, but now we're not going to be tricked here. Remember, the cost price is 650. This is the CP. So please, you have to put the CP under the cost of sales column, the 650 Rand. Now, you have to go work out the selling price, which you all know how to do by now. So, 650 times by 100 plus 50 over 100, and we get an amount of 975 Rand. So that is how much we sold the goods to S Low for, 975 Rand. Okay, can we move on to the next transaction? No, because what do we always immediately have to do? Update her ledger. So we come to S Low. The date is the 16th, and remember, we need to write the source document. Duplicate invoice. And just double check, it's duplicate invoice number 14. The journal we just came from is the DJ. And remember, the DJ always goes on the debit side, okay? She bought it for 975 Rand. Okay, so now we need to work out how much does she owe us on the 16th. So what do? We're going to take this amount that she owed us from the 2nd, so her old balance, plus what she just purchased now. Because now, remember, she's purchasing more, so she owes you more money. Her debt is increasing. It sucks for her. So we say 1450 plus 975, and we get an amount of 2425. That is how much she owes us. So if she were to come to us on the 17th, we would say, you now owe us 2,425 Rand. Please, it's so important that you keep this balance column up to date. Okay, then we are done. So as soon as you're done with the debtors ledger, then you know you finished. That is the 16th. Then on the 18th, there were credit sales. So immediately your brain's working, you know, okay, whenever it's credit sales, it is always the DJ. We sold to J. Pierce, and it amounted to 1,800 Rand. This was the sales amount. So you immediately know that this 1,800 is your SP. That is your selling price. That's what you sold it to her for. So where do we need to go? Straight into into the journal. Okay. Source document number 15. The day is the 18th. And we are selling to J. Pierce, whose ledger number, you can just double check, is DL2. Okay, and then we sold it to her for 1,800 Rand. That was the selling price there that I said, 1,800 Rand. Now we need to work out the cost price to see how much we purchased it for originally. So take 1,800 times by 100 over 100 plus the markup, which is 50, and we get an amount of 1,200 Rand. Okay, but you can't move on to the next transaction. We need to go update J. Pierce's ledger so we can see how much she owes us now. Okay, so it is the 18th of April. Remember, we always write the source document, so we say duplicate invoice, and it is number 15. Please don't forget the number. We've just come from the DJ, and remember, a DJ entry always goes on the debit side, the 1,800 Rand, okay? Why? Because her account is increasing. She owes us more money because she bought on credit. So what do? We take the 1,000 Rand plus the 1,800 Rand, and we say, in our calculators, 1,000 plus 1,800, and we get an amount of 2,800 Rand that she now owes us. You definitely don't need to draw these arrows. The arrows, I'm just showing you how the calculation works. Please, if anything, you can draw them in pencil and then erase them after. Okay, so that one on the 18th is done, but there's another one on the 18th, and it says C. Pina. So now we're dealing with C. Pina. He bought stock on account. So as soon as we see on account, we know DJ, and he bought for 420. That is how much he bought it for. So we know that is the selling price. Okay, so where do we need to go? DJ, and then into the ledger. So it is source document number 16. The day is also the 18th, so you don't have to rewrite it. We are selling to C. Pina, whose ledger is DL3. So we can see it there, okay? And he purchased for 420 Rand. That was the selling price. Now we have to work out the cost price. So 420 times by 100 over 100 plus markup, which is the 50, and we get an amount of 280 Rand. Okay, what do we need to do immediately is to go update his ledger so that we can remember how much he owes us. We don't want to forget about this 420. So we go to his ledger and we rewrite the dates. It's the 18th. Remember, we always write the source document. So we say duplicate invoice. And let's just double check the number. Number 16. Okay, we just came from the DJ. And remember, the DJ always goes on the debit side. And that amount is 420 Rand. Okay, I'm not going to draw the arrows now because hopefully it makes sense. So we've got his previous amount, which is 1,480. And we're going to plus the 420 Rand because he owes us more money. So look, now C. Pina owes us 1,900 Rand. Okay, so I took the 1,480 plus the 420, and he now owes us 1,900. And the last one. So So that is done, which means the 18th is done. Lastly, on the 25th, we sold goods. So we sold goods. And look at this trick again. With a cost price of 1,500 Rand. So this 1,500 Rand is the CP, the cost of sales amount. Okay. We sold on credit. So we know whenever we see those words, it has to be the DJ. And who did we sell to? S low. Okay. So let's go into the DJ. It is source document number 17. The day is the 25th. And we are selling to S low on account. S low's folio number is debtors ledger number 1, DL1. But we must be careful. Remember, they gave us the cost price is the 1,500 Rand. Okay, so where does CP go? Under the cost of sales column, 1,500 Rand. So we now need to work out the selling price. So we take 1,500, excuse me, 1,500 times by 100 plus the markup over 100. And we get an amount of 2,250. Okay, we can't forget. We have to update S Low's ledger to see what she owes us now because she just bought more on credit. So we come. The day is the 25th, and we write the source document number. It is duplicate invoice number 17. The journal is the DJ. And remember, the DJ always goes on the debit side. Why? Because her account is increasing. She owes us more money. So then we take the 2,425, which she owed us previously, and we now need to plus the 2,250 that she owes us from today's transaction, and we can see she now owes us 4,675. And that is the activity completed. So let's just check the rules. We posted one transaction at a time. We posted into the journal and immediately into the debtors ledger. Then step 4 said, keep updating the balance. We did that. That is what we were doing with the arrows. And lastly, it says, total the debtors journal. So we quickly come to the DJ and we add the two columns up. So 600 plus 1,200 plus 975 plus 1,800 plus 420 plus 2,250. And we get an amount of 7,245. And then cost of sales column, 400 plus 800 plus 650 plus 1,200 plus 280 plus 1,500. And we get an amount of 4,830. Please bear in mind that you must not total the ledger numbers. That is the final. So we can see in April, S-Low now owes us 4,675. J. Pierce, her account ends on 2,800. You don't total or do anything weird there. And CP now owes us 1,900 Rand. Then when we draw up the books for next month, we know that these last amounts will be the new account renders. And that is the debtors journal and the debtors ledger.